How sweet it is for Syracuse basketball. Welcome, everybody. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe, once again flying solo here on the postgame show. My colleague Mike Curtis is on assignment tonight. Oh, boy, the headlines just write themselves, right? How sweet it is. You can't spell survives without SU. A tense one down the stretch. That's March Madness. In a nutshell, folks, Syracuse with a 70-59 lead with 2 minutes to go. West Virginia scraps and claws its way back into the game. Their pressure defense gives Syracuse a lot of fits just inbounding the basketball down the stretch. Joe Girard misses a free throw. Buddy Boeheim goes 1 of 2 at the free throw line down the stretch. But at the end, a travel by West Virginia. And Syracuse survives, and it's on to the Sweet 16 for the Orange. Final score in Indianapolis, Syracuse 75 and West Virginia 72. Great to have you along for the ride here tonight. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube Sports. Just a reminder that we do put this YouTube clip up. It'll be on social media when it's over on our SYR basketball Twitter feed, so give that a follow if you haven't. I embedded in my recap on syracuse.com. You can find it on Facebook. So just know if you can't be with us here live after the games, you have a place to find the show when it's over. I don't know what it was like where you were today, but here in Syracuse, it was just a sunny day. Just clear skies, not a cloud in the sky kind of day. 60s, just beautiful spring weather in central New York. And it set up a game where Syracuse was feeling it from the beginning. And by the way, Buddy Boeheim, who ends up being the leading scorer in this game with 25 points, had 22 of those 25 in the second half. Syracuse needed other players to step up in the first half of this game, and they did. Joe Girard, in particular, stepped up for Syracuse when they really needed him to. Marek Dolezaj ends up getting into foul trouble, but huge for Syracuse. Quincy Guerrier crashing the boards. You name it, they stepped in and helped Syracuse in this one tonight. What a game it was. And what do you say we go over a couple of the key stats from this matchup, and then I'll respond to your very happy comments, I'm sure, about this one. By the way, Syracuse is the best double-digit seed in NCAA tournament history. And that's not my opinion. Statistically, they are. 9-2, Syracuse is as a double-digit seed all time. And when Syracuse has been a 10 or 11 seed, all 3 times, by the way, since 2016. In 2016, Syracuse was a 10 seed. They go to the Final Four. In 2018, Syracuse, an 11 seed. They advance to the Sweet 16. And once again here in 2021, Syracuse, an 11 seed, and they advance to the Sweet 16. It's incredible what happens when Syracuse barely makes it in the tournament. They just keep making a run. It's incredible to think about. So we brought up Buddy Boeheim. Buddy buckets, what can you say? He's averaging 25 points per game in the last 5 coming in. He has 25 points in this game, 22 of 25 in the second half. Some huge shots for Syracuse, a big rebound down the stretch. We mentioned the free throws got a little tight there, but he did hit a couple free throws to put Syracuse up 74-68. What more can you say? He's the best player in the country right now. He's the best player in college basketball right now. The numbers he's putting up, the shots, West Virginia all over him. He had some open shots that he missed in that first half. He ends up going 6 of 13 from three-point range, 8 of 17 overall. But Buddy just finds a way. He's the best player in college basketball right now. In this tournament, there's no question about it. He has been the MVP of the entire tournament. The most consistent player, the best player, whatever label you want to put on it, it's been Buddy Boeheim. There's no argument there to that. Joe Girard, we mentioned, huge first half for Syracuse. All this from three-point range. He goes 4 of 8, 12 points on the day. Once again, crashes the boards. He led Syracuse in rebounding against San Diego State Friday night. He does it again here with 6 boards, dishes out 7 assists, had a few turnovers. West Virginia pressured him, played good defense on him at times. You kind of have to take that with Joe. But look, Kadari Richmond had his moments in this game, don't get me wrong, but he did not have to bail out Girard, really. There was times down the stretch you needed kind of that bigger presence out there for Kadari, but this was the latest that Girard's been out there in the first half and the second half. And boy, is there a player in the country that missed the crowds in college basketball more than Joe Girard? This kid just feeds off of the crowd. He was doing the shush signal. He was egging on the crowd. The Syracuse fans that were there in Indy just he just feeds off the energy of live people at sporting events. What a concept, right? We mentioned Quincy Guerrier, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 5 block shots for Quincy in this game as well. Ended up only with 3 fouls. Looked like he was going to get into serious foul trouble there for a minute, but ends up with just 3. Turned the ball over 4 times in this one. Another struggle for Alan Griffin. It just has not been his game as of late. Just 3 points for Griff in this one. He was pretty active on defense early in the game, hit a 3, but Robert Braswell comes in for him again off the bench. 7 points for Braswell, had a huge 3-pointer down the stretch. And that's something that Syracuse did really well in this game. Syracuse had 18 assists on 27 field goals in this matchup. They moved the ball extraordinarily well in this game. Their ball movement has just been crisp and sharp, really the last 6-7 games of the season. A lot of things Syracuse is doing at its best are happening at the end of the season, right here, right now, when they really need it to be, and moving the ball has been a lot better. Braswell, huge there. Not a good one for Jesse Edwards, unfortunately. He comes in for Marek Dolezaj, who had foul trouble, picks up 4 quick fouls, and has to go back to the bench. Dolezaj comes back in with 4 fouls, and guess what? Doesn't even foul out of the game. I got to tell you, I'm surprised at the lack of West Virginia going at Marek Dolezaj. You got a guy with 4 fouls has to come back into the game. There was like 10 minutes to go. I could be off there. I think it could be even more than that. And you don't attack him. You don't go after him. I said that on Twitter, and a lot of fans were like, shh, what are you doing? Don't say that. Don't jinx it, right? But bad strategy there on Bob Huggins' part. Dolezaj ends up with 12 points on the day, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, couple of blocks. I mean, just a typical Marek Dolezaj game. We mentioned the passing. He's the best passer on the team, and he just did it again today. So that is, from an individual standpoint, Syracuse shot 52% for this game. 27 of 52. They were 14 of 31 from three-point range. Just another huge shooting day for the Orange. And again, it wasn't just Buddy this time. You had Gerard with a couple of threes, Guerrier with a couple of threes. We mentioned Braswell and Griffin add in there. I mean, Buddy carried the anchor of it, but not like San Diego State on Friday when it was the Buddy show with 30 points and everybody else just kind of filled in there. It was Buddy and the Pips on Friday night. A much more well-balanced effort in this game, particularly in the first half. Syracuse, 7 of 11 from the free throw line. Hey, free throws still matter. Boy, they got away with a couple misses there at the end, but that's March for you. That's March Madness. You get away with some things like that. West Virginia, I feel bad for McBride, that travel he had at the end. All told, McNeil was just bombing from three-point range. He had 23 points on the day, 7 of 13 from three-point range. Matthews with 14 points on the day. Sherman hit a couple of threes. He ends up with 11 points, but their big scorer, we mentioned McBride, held in check. He had 30 points on Friday against Morehead State, had just 11 in this game. West Virginia's big man, Culver, not much, 7 points, 3 rebounds. He didn't play much in the second half because they wanted McNeil and some shooters out there. He finishes 2 of 10 on the day. And I'll tell you what, you got to be breathing a sigh of relief if you're a Syracuse fan from the standpoint of officiating. There was a point in this game when Syracuse got called for, I think it was 9 out of 10 fouls at one point. The disparity was clearly in favor of West Virginia. And West Virginia hand checks a lot. They play very physical defense, but the fouls kept coming on Syracuse. We mentioned Dolezaj with 4, Guerrier with 4. Edwards picks up 4 quick fouls. Now listen, some of those were on him, and some of those were certainly on Syracuse, but the disparity in officiating, I'm glad that's not going to be a bigger topic of conversation. It's a topic of conversation. It's something to think about after this game. I'm glad it's not the dominant topic of conversation in this game because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be talking about a game ruined by officiating. College officials love to call charges. They love to anticipate calls, and there were some bad ones in this game. There is no doubt about that. Much more weighted towards West Virginia. You know, Syracuse certainly had its own share of calls that you could kind of raise an eyebrow at, but I'm so glad that's not going to be the dominant part of the conversation. Look, Syracuse has to inbound the ball better. You can't throw the inbound into the corner. West Virginia is really good at defending that, but they've got to work on that this week. And who's Syracuse going to get next? Well, as we speak, we don't know. I'll pop in here while we're yakking about it here. Halftime, the 10-seed Rutgers leads the 2-seed Houston 30-27 as we speak. That's who Syracuse is going to get in the Sweet 16, the winner of that game. Syracuse played Rutgers earlier this year. They lost at Rutgers earlier this year. Rutgers won their first NCAA tournament game in 38 years. To get to this game, we'll see if they can hold on and beat the 2-seed Houston. Boy, a lot of top seeds going down. March Madness. I don't know about you, but I ripped up my bracket 3 days ago. It's just enjoying the hoops from now on. So that's who Syracuse is going to get next. So do you get the team that's already seen the zone and has beaten Syracuse, or do you get Houston out of the American Athletic Conference? Good team, top 5, top 10 team throughout the year. We'll see if they can make the comeback and if that's who Syracuse gets. And remember, they stay in Indy. This is like Survivor. You just stay on the island until you lose. And Syracuse is staying in Indy for the foreseeable future here, because they're one of 16 teams left in college basketball. And boy, how many times I'm going to start responding to your comments here, guys. How many times have we talked on this show through the year, just looked at it? And this was a Syracuse team that even after they lost to Georgia Tech, I was on this show, and look, I don't think I was wrong to say they didn't look like an NCAA tournament team. They just looked like a team that didn't have a lot of confidence. They were not together in terms of the players and the balanced effort that they needed. Their defense was bad. It was not the crisp 2-3 zone that we've seen the past 2 games. West Virginia found its way around it, gained some more confidence in this game. Certainly wasn't the shutdown that we saw Friday against San Diego State. But I'll tell you what, Syracuse and their clamp down defense in the first half really helped, because West Virginia was just coming from behind the whole game. They took a quick lead in the second half. Syracuse got it right back on a couple of Buddy Boeheim 3-pointers. But that gap that they built in the first half was huge. It was huge while West Virginia was trying to figure out the zone. Syracuse's offensive efficiency has been one of the best in college basketball as of late, and they're just scoring consistently, coming down, responding to what West Virginia is doing. At first, they shot a lot from 3. Then they went inside, balanced it out. They got a lot of help for Buddy, and particularly in that first half, and then just let their guy take over in the second half. Big time there for Syracuse. And now whoever they get in the next round has to think about that. And it's just such a mental edge for Syracuse, because you spend so much time preparing and thinking and letting that zone consume you. And it takes you out of your game. It takes you out of what you want to do offensively. West Virginia had to do this on a short turnaround. By the way, Syracuse has been pretty darn good against West Virginia. Somebody can look this up if I'm wrong, but I believe Syracuse is now 23-5 all time against West Virginia. They hadn't played, of course, in about 9 years since the Big East days. Congratulations to Bob Huggins, gets in that 900 win club, but it was somebody who's got over 1,000 wins. Yes, NCAA. Jim Boeheim has over 1,000 wins that took down Huggy Bear and West Virginia tonight. Okay, enough of me. You guys have been going at it here in the comments, and I love it. And I'm just going to respond to a few of what you guys have, and gals for that matter, have said. Dan says Kadari with the handle wins the game. That was huge, putting him in down the stretch. Maria, I think, speaks for a lot of us. This one took years off my life. Took a few years off everybody's life, right? Brendan saying agreed that Buddy didn't play in the first game. Love seeing Buddy chirping. West Virginia has to be talking major trash, and he answered it. I'll tell you what, Buddy, Barbara here saying I had 3 heart attacks in the last 5 minutes. Reminds me of that great Saturday Night Live skit, you know, the guys that, the Bears, he's having a heart attack again. So Barbara, we hope you're okay, but everybody tense with that one. But what was I going to say there? I had another, the chirping. So Buddy in the postgame press conference was asked about getting his dad back to the Sweet 16. And look, when athletes and coaches tell you that they don't hear what the media says, they don't hear what the fans say, they don't go on social media, they are lying. Okay. And I mean this in the best way possible, because Buddy mentioned that specifically, some things that were being said on Twitter after the Georgia Tech game. Because if the players don't seek it out, someone's going to put it in front of them. If it's a family member, a friend, a roommate, a teammate, one way or the other, they're going to get it. And to Jim Boeheim's credit, he doesn't pretend he doesn't hear this stuff. He reads it, he sees it, he hears it. I get it firsthand. I interview Jim weekly during the season, and 4 or 5 times during my radio chats with Jim, he mentioned something specifically that I said or wrote or caller said on the air. Or he sees it and hears all. And these guys are fueled by it. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's kind of funny how they say they don't see it, they don't hear it, they don't read it. Oh, they see, hear, and read all. And it fuels them. And it once again fueled this Syracuse team, right? When you're an 11 seed and everybody's doubting you, you need that extra push. And when you're Buddy Boeheim and you're the coach's son, it's a double dose of that because people are just going to write you off and say that you're only in the game because you're the coach's son. Well, Buddy Boeheim, all he's done is been the best player in this tournament. So I think he's silencing those last few critics that are out there. And good for him. The guy busts his butt working on the game. I've had the great fortune to do pregame with Eric Devendorf this year on the radio side. And Devo did a lot of work with Buddy in the offseason. And it was just funny to hear stories from Devo about even Devo would be like, Buddy, you got to take a break. Right. And the Boeheims have their own gym, right? Advantages to being, a fortunate millionaire head coach, and you can build your own gym at your house. Hey, listen, if I had that money, I'd do it too. But Buddy, that's all he does. He is the definition of a gym rat. He is in that gym constantly. He'll come home after games and just put up shots. And you can see the work paying off now. He is fundamentally sound. He's hitting shots with defenders in his face. He's getting open. He had a ridiculous shot Friday. He had another ridiculous shot in this game from the logo. I mean, just pull it up from the logo, Steph Curry style, with that kind of confidence. Credit to him in that. Terry says that Dolzaj is such a smart player. He really is. Michael saying that he's Mr. Intangible. He's kind of the Swiss Army knife for this team. He can do everything. And I think it got a little worrisome. Boeheim had to gamble when he put Dolzaj back in with 4 fouls. Doesn't pick up the 5th. I mentioned it. West Virginia, Bob Huggins, he may have 900 wins, which is 900 more than I have, but you're going to be thinking about that one all offseason and why you didn't attack him more. The way the refs were calling the game, you should have went at Dolzaj and gotten him out of there. Not that Syracuse, that would have been the death blow per se. Syracuse found other ways to get this, but because he's so intangible, because he's so versatile, I should say, and brings all those intangibles to the table, that's a guy you want off the floor. If you can get him off the floor, I thought it was bad strategy there by Bob Huggins in this one. Antonio says with Griffin not playing his best, it may be a good option to have Kadari, Girard, and Boeheim in for stretches. I agree with that, although Braswell's playing well. When Griffin's out, you've got an automatic guy that can sub in. Jesse didn't have his best game. I think when Jim throughout the year was saying that Jesse's not ready, right? I think these were the kind of things he was talking about. He still kind of falls into some habits. Again, the refs were calling it close, and you can question a couple of those calls. But yeah, Jesse kind of falls in these traps sometimes. He's still learning the game. And I think this offseason is going to be huge for him. He's going to put on about 15 to 20 pounds, learn the game a little bit more. I was doing radio today with Roosevelt Bowie, the legend, Louie and Bowie show, right? And he does a lot of work with basketball players, particularly big men. He was telling me how he talks to Jesse. He texts Jesse, gives him tips. And he was telling me about some of the things that he tells Jesse just about working on the game. Don't get frustrated by certain things. And remember, Jesse's an international player, came over and is learning the American style, and he's got to get better with his handle. And I know he's a sophomore going to be a junior, but he's certainly shown what he can do. The space he takes up in the zone, his offense is improving. I think we're going to see all that work pay off next year for Jesse. Not to say he can't do more in this tournament for Syracuse, but I think you're going to see a guy with a better handle, more control, will know the zone better. He's going to put on a lot of weight in the offseason as well. On the Marek Dolzaj pizza plan, I believe, is what Jesse is going to be on. Neil with a great point here saying, Dolzaj, the key to this win. Buddy won it for us and was a total team effort, but Marek was the key guy, playing with 4 fouls forever and just brilliant with the right assists, shots, and rebounds. Great game for the Orange. Neil in SoCal, always appreciate you checking in and the nice comments, my friend. Everybody just happy. I love all the emojis. Love wherever you're checking in from today. I love seeing people from all over the country checking in. Always a great thing. And we'll be right back here next week. We don't know times, of course, at this point. Typically, the Sweet 16 games, because it pairs down, are all in prime time. But just keep an eye on the game time, and we'll be here as we usually are after every Syracuse game. And I know you guys are happy to be here once again, and I'm happy that you're here. Just some more comments about the officiating. You know what I don't like are the anticipatory calls. Is that even a word? Did I say that right? You can't anticipate charges. There was one charge in particular where the two refs and it's good that they're consulting and getting the call right. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he was going to call it. And the other guy kind of nodded at him like he was going to call it. So he just kind of like shoulder shrug emojied. Okay, I'll call it. Refs aren't perfect. I hate to pick on refs all the time. That's not an easy job, but these are supposed to be the best of the best, right? If you're in the tournament, These are the highest graded officials out there. We got a guy in Syracuse, the great Pat Driscoll. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. I've had some conversations with Pat about officiating. It's not an easy gig. It's not. And I give them credit for what they do. But they're scrutinized. But there was no doubt in this game. It was weighted to the West Virginia side. I'm just very thankful, and I think you are too. Let the kids play. Let the kids win. Let the players win. You got to call what's there. You have to call what's obvious. But I was really worried that was going to be a huge storyline down the stretch, and thankfully it wasn't in this game. All right, Matt, commenting on that, by the way, saying he thought the officiating was rough. Richmond completely mugged on one inbounds play. The refs let West Virginia play physical. Thought they were supposed to call the hand checking, and that's my other frustration with it, Matt. Call it close on both sides. It's not like West Virginia wasn't hand checking, wasn't playing physical. They have a reputation, not quite this year. This was actually more of an offensive-minded team for Bob Huggins than usual, but you could see it, right? You could just see that the hand checking, the mugging, as you put it, the physical play, just call it both ways. Not that I wanted a game of, I love free throws, as you know, free throws matter, kids, but I didn't want to see both teams going to the free throw line 30 times. But if that's what you're going to do, just call it even. I just think that's a fair ask from a lot of us out there, right? So we'll see how that goes going forward. And that can affect a tournament game more than anything, because you get some officials that haven't seen certain teams during the year, and you just don't want that to be as big of a factor as it was at times in this game, but thankfully, ultimately not deciding the game. Jim saying, go Cuse. Joe Girard, you can do this. Keep playing team ball and hustling. Iris saying to Michael that I think Joe is back healthy, and it shows in his game. A solid player had a slump because he wasn't healthy. Now he's back. That's a good point from Iris. Think of the 3 COVID pauses this team had. So you had one at the beginning of the season when Jim Boeheim got COVID. They don't practice for 12 days. They played Bryant on a day's notice, right? And struggle in that game. Barely beat Bryant. There was the COVID pause in the middle of the season. Or go back one. Buddy Boeheim came into contact with a walk-on. He had to sit out 3 games, including that Rutgers game, by the way. Let's not forget. And then the COVID pause that shut the whole team down for about 2 weeks when Buddy had COVID and Joe had COVID, and Joe had it bad. Joe's got asthma. He admitted he was sluggish for a while, couldn't really breathe, and, all those things you worry about. Thankfully, he came out of it okay. But when you interrupt a season like that many times, it almost makes sense that Syracuse is playing their best basketball now, because when they started to get into a rhythm and figure things out, get the right people off the bench, know where to be on defense, get the shooters where they need to be. Timing is everything in life, friends. And Girard has played a lot better as of late. And I mentioned it earlier, that kid just feeds off the crowd. He loves the energy of being in a crowd, in a building, those empty buildings. Just, it really affected him as a shooter. Now, Joe had some turnovers in this game. He had that. Joe's the best free throw shooter on this team. Think of the thousands of free throws this guy has done in practice in his life, maybe even millions at this point. And this is on the front end. That's mental. That's when you don't let your muscle memory take over and just do what you got to do. But hey, it's the NCAA tournament. There's pressure in the NCAA tournament, but all told, he's been a lot better as of late. There is no question about it. And they're going to need it. They're going to need it at this point. But man, Kadari is such a great compliment off the bat. I think Kadari's eventually going to bump Joe as the starting point guard, but Jim Boeheim has said it 100 times. He'll continue to say it. He's very loyal to his players. All 3 guards are going to play. All 3 guards have a role. And I think this was yet another game where we saw that. Friday was a great example of it. This was a great example of it. There were times in the first half when Buddy had to come out, right? You need that other guard. Now, it'd be better if Syracuse had more than 3 guards on this team, frankly, but just kind of how this roster, worked out. Buddy, Joe, and Kadari all needed a breather at times when they were kind of struggling, getting used to things out there. So that balance was certainly there in this game. Chris saying Boeheim is giving more players opportunities and they're making the most of it. Jim is very big about how you play in practice. Once you get into the postseason, I don't think that matters as much, but Braswell has proven he belongs out there. We mentioned that huge 3 that he had. He plays great defense. He knows the rotations. I've said this a couple times on the show, but it bears repeating. He knows the rotations in the zone better than anybody. He knows where to be. He came right into this game when Griffin was struggling. And that's why Griffin goes out, because Griffin just gets lost in the zone sometimes. And Jim's got pretty thin patience for him right now in that department. Braswell came in, immediately rotated over, caused a turnover. That was big in this game, too. How many turnovers did West Virginia end up with here? Let me look that up while we're talking about it here. So, and points off turnovers actually didn't favor Syracuse as much as you would think it would. 14 turnovers. A lot of those came in the first half in this game. You know what I forgot to check, too, while we're here? Syracuse, 29. Here's the thing. Syracuse got out-rebounded 40-29. That's just the third game this season that they won being out-rebounded. That's huge. 40-29, that's a big gap. That's a considerable number of rebounds that West Virginia got but couldn't convert into points. So it all balances out in the end at this point. Okay, what do you say we end it there for tonight? But I'll tell you what, friends, no matter where you are, enjoy this. There is nothing like it when Syracuse makes a deep run in the tournament, particularly an unexpected one like this. The energy, wherever you are, what I love about this show is you're checking in from all over the place. I had a guy hit me on Twitter who was like, I was at watching the game in West Virginia as a Syracuse fan, and thankfully he got out of there alive. But wherever you are, there is nothing like the energy of when Syracuse makes a deep tournament run, March Madness. This is a fun team to watch. They're playing with house money now. This is all gravy. No matter what they do from here on out, we'll see if they play Rutgers or if they play Houston. And remember, the last two times that Syracuse got eliminated after making a deep run, they got beat by an ACC team that knew the zone and could prepare for Syracuse. Rutgers did play Syracuse earlier this year, so at least they've got somewhat of a working knowledge of it. So whoever they play in the next round, that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. But this is fun, and I'm happy for you guys. I'm happy for the fans. You know, that's what doing a show like this is all about. Fans come in, they express frustration when they're not playing well. They're, you know, happy when they express frustration when they're not playing well. You guys are happy when they're playing well. That's life as a sports fan, right? The ups and downs and the roller coasters. But this is the stuff you remember. Good teams like this, and they're not done. They are not done. So we got a little time to breathe and let it play out and see how things go. And we will be right back here on Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health. After Syracuse plays in the Sweet 16 next week. Plenty of coverage to come throughout the week. Please check out all the great stuff from my talented colleagues on such a great team, and so thankful to be on such a great team with Mike Waters and Donna DeToda and Mike Curtis, who's usually here with me on the postgame show, and Chris Carlson and Dennis Nett and just everybody, Hank Dolman behind the scenes. I'm leaving out some people, but just everybody that does such a great job. And we'll be all over it for you. Please check out my recap on syracuse.com tomorrow. Just a reminder, if you do miss this show, we will tweet it out on SYR Basketball. Subscribe to Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube. I embedded in my recap. It archives automatically on Facebook. Plenty of places to find it if you can't be here live. Enjoy it, everybody. Enjoy the week. Thanks for being here. And we'll talk to you next time on Syracuse Basketball Postgame. How sweet it is.